You thought I wouldn't find out, but this key unlocks everything. The plumber's face went white as he pulled his camera snake out of our shower drain. That's never a good sign when you're paying a guy $200 to figure out why water's been backing up for 3 weeks. "Sir," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "you need to see this. I'm Nick Palmer, 42 years old, a building inspector for the city of Millbrook. I've seen everything from foundation cracks that could swallow a car to electrical work that would make Thomas Edison weep. But the look on this plumber's face, that was new. What is it, Jerry?" I asked, wiping grease off my hands. I'd been fixing the garage door opener while he worked. A typical Saturday morning routine in suburbia. Jerry held up his camera display. There, wedged deep in the pipe where it curved toward the main line, was something that made my blood freeze. A small metal object. Rectangular with an engraving. I could make out even on the tiny screen. CR. The initials were clear as day. Chad Rohr, my wife Lena's personal trainer. The guy she'd been taking extra sessions with for the past 6 months. The same Chad Rohr who drove a flashy red Camaro and wore gold chains like he was auditioning for a mob movie. "How long has this been down there?" I asked, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. Jerry shook his head. "Hard to say. Months, maybe longer, but sir," he leaned closer, lowering his voice like we were in church. "This isn't something that just falls down a drain. Someone had to push it pretty far down to get it. Wedged like this." I stared at the screen. The key looked like one of those gym locker keys. The kind they give you at fancy fitness clubs. The kind Lena went to every Tuesday and Thursday evening. Sometimes Saturdays too, when she said she needed extra motivation. "Can you get it out?" I asked. "Yeah, but it's going to require cutting the pipe. Probably a $300 job minimum." "Do it," I said. Jerry nodded and started gathering his tools. I walked back into the house, my mind racing. Lena was at the grocery store, or at least that's where she said she was going. These days I wasn't sure about anything she told me. Our house was a modest 2-story colonial on Maple Street, the kind of place where neighbors know each other's business and kids ride bikes until the streetlights come on. We bought it 8 years ago, right after we got married. Back when I thought Lena Palmer was the luckiest thing that ever happened to Nick Palmer. I sat down at the kitchen table and really looked around for the first time in months. The morning light streaming through the windows showed dust on surfaces that used to be spotless. Lena had always been meticulous about cleaning, but lately she'd been distracted. "Busy with work," she'd say. "The gym's expanding and I need to train more clients." Lena worked as a fitness instructor at Elite Fitness, the upscale gym on the north side of town. She'd started there 2 years ago after getting her certification, saying she wanted to help people transform their lives. Apparently, she'd been transforming more than just their workout routines. The front door opened and I heard Lena's voice calling out, "Nick, whose van is that in the driveway?" "Plumber," I called back. "Shower drain's finally getting fixed." She appeared in the kitchen doorway, grocery bags in both hands. At 38, Lena still looked like the aerobics instructor she was. Blonde hair always perfect, makeup flawless even for a grocery run, wearing yoga pants that probably cost more than my work boots. "Oh good," she said, setting the bags on the counter. I was getting tired of showering. In the guest bathroom, I watched her unpack. Groceries, organic this, gluten-free that. She'd gotten into health food around the same time she started working at the gym. Around the same time she started coming home late with stories about difficult clients and equipment maintenance. "How was the store?" I asked. "Fine, crowded for a Saturday," she replied, not looking at me, just putting items away with mechanical precision. The sound of Jerry's pipe cutter started up from the bathroom. Lena glanced toward the noise, and I could have sworn I saw something flicker across her face. Worry, fear. It was gone before I could be sure. "I'm going to change clothes," she said. "That noise is giving me a headache." She disappeared upstairs, and I heard our bedroom door close. A minute later, the shower in the guest bathroom started running. Funny how her headache didn't stop her from taking a shower right next to the source of the noise. Jerry appeared in the kitchen 20 minutes later, holding a small plastic bag. Inside was the key, cleaned off and gleaming under our kitchen lights. "Here you go," he said, handing me the bag. "Strangest thing I've pulled out of a drain in 30 years of plumbing." I held the key up to the light. The engraving was even clearer now, CR in fancy script letters. On the back was a number 247. "Thanks, Jerry, what do I owe you?" "$350 like I said," he replied, glancing toward the stairs where the shower was still running. "But sir, I don't know what's going on here, but be careful. People who hide things in drains, they're usually hiding bigger things, too." I paid him cash and walked him to the door. As his van pulled out of the driveway, I stood there holding that key, feeling like my entire world had just shifted on its axis. The shower upstairs shut off. A few minutes later, Lena came downstairs in a fresh outfit, jeans and a sweater that hugged her in all the right places. She'd always dressed well, but lately it seemed like she was dressing for someone else's benefit. "All fixed?" she asked, nodding toward the master bathroom. "Yeah, Jerry got it all sorted out," I said, holding up the key. "Found the problem." Her face went completely pale. For a split second, her carefully constructed composure cracked, and I saw a raw panic in her eyes. "What is that?" she asked, her voice half an octave higher. "Good question," I said. "Jerry found it wedged in our shower drain. Looks like a gym locker key. See the initials? CR. I turned it over in my palm. Number 247. You wouldn't happen to know whose locker that is, would you?" Lena's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She reached for the key, but I closed my fist around it. "Nick, I can explain," she said. "I bet you can," I replied, pocketing the key. "But here's the thing, Lena. I don't want to hear it. Not right now. Right now, I want you to think real hard about what you're going to say next, because whatever comes out of your mouth is going to determine what happens to our marriage." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could practically see the wheels turning in her head, calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much I was guessing. "It's not what you think," she finally said. "Really? Because what I think is that my wife has been screwing around with Chad Rohr, and somehow his locker key ended up in our shower drain. So please enlighten me. What should I be thinking instead?" The color drained from her face completely. "Now, Nick, please let me explain," she pleaded. "Explain what? How his key got into our drain? Or why you've been coming home late 3 nights a week smelling like someone else's cologne? Or maybe you want to explain why you started password protecting your phone 6 months ago." She sank into one of the kitchen chairs, her perfect composure finally cracking. "I never meant for this to happen," she said. And there it was, the confession I'd been dreading and expecting in equal measure. "How long?" I asked. "Nick," she started. "How long, Lena?" She stared at her hands. 4 months, 4 months. While I'd been working 10-hour days inspecting buildings and coming home to kiss her hello. While I'd been planning our vacation to Colorado and talking about maybe starting a family. While I'd been living in a marriage, she'd been living a lie. "I need some air," I said, heading for the door. "Nick, wait. We need to talk about this," she called after me. I turned back to her. "No, Lena, we really don't. What we need is for you to figure out where you're going to be staying tonight, because it's not going to be here. You can't just throw me out of my own house," she protested. "Watch me," I said, grabbing my keys and wallet and heading for the garage. As I backed out of the driveway, I could see Lena standing in the kitchen window, her phone already pressed to her ear, probably calling Chad or her sister or her lawyer. I didn't care anymore. The Floodgate was exactly the kind of dive bar you'd expect to find in a town like Millbrook, dim lighting, sticky floors, and the kind of regulars who knew everyone's business before they did. It was also where my brother Marty spent most of his Saturday afternoons, which made it the perfect place to drink away the worst day of my marriage. I found Marty at his usual spot at the end of the bar, nursing a beer and watching college football on the ancient TV mounted in the corner. At 45, Marty looked like what I might become if I stopped caring about everything: graying hair, permanent 5 o'clock shadow, and the kind of cynical expression that came from 20 years as a city cop before taking early retirement. "Well, look what the cat dragged in," he said as I slumped onto the bar stool next to him. "Let me guess. Lena finally drove you to drink." "Something like that," I replied, signaling the bartender, a woman named Dolores, who'd been serving beer at the Floodgate since before I was born. "Whiskey, make it a double." Marty raised an eyebrow. That bad, huh? I pulled the key out of my pocket and set it on the bar between us. Found this in my shower drain this morning. Marty picked it up, squinted at the engraving and let out a low whistle. Chad Rohr, that pretty boy from the gym. The very same, I said. Well, crap, Marty said, setting the key down and taking a long pull from his beer. How long you been suspecting? Couple months, maybe longer. You know how it is. You don't want to believe it, so you make excuses. Late nights at work, girls' weekends that don't include any girls I know, new underwear that never makes an appearance when I'm around. Dolores slid my whiskey across the bar. I downed it in one gulp and immediately regretted it. I wasn't much of a drinker, but desperate times called for desperate measures. So what's the plan? Marty asked. A plan? Come on, Nick. You didn't come here just to drink yourself stupid. You want revenge. I can see it in your eyes. He was right. Of course, the hurt was there, sure. But underneath it was something darker. Something that wanted to make Lena and Chad pay for what they'd done to my life. I want to destroy them, I said quietly. Both of them. Marty grinned. Now you're talking. But we're going to do this smart. No assault charges, no restraining orders. Nothing that gets you arrested or costs you the house and the divorce. We're going to ruin them the right way. The right way. Public humiliation, social destruction, financial ruin. Make them pariahs in this town. He signaled Dolores for another round. Trust me, little brother. I've seen enough cheating spouses to know how this works. The key is making sure everyone knows what they did and making sure they can't come back from it. Over the next 2 hours, Marty laid out what he called the scorched earth protocol. It was devious, thorough, and completely legal. By the time we were done planning, I felt better than I had in months. First things first, Marty said, pulling out his phone. We need evidence. Real evidence, not just a key in a drain. What kind of evidence? I asked. Photos, texts, witnesses, stuff that'll hold up in divorce court and destroy their reputations. He scrolled through his contacts. I know a guy who does private investigation work. Former cop, very discreet, very thorough. That's expensive, I said. Not as expensive as letting Lena take half your stuff while she rides off into the sunset with Captain Biceps. Marty replied, finding the number he was looking for. Besides, I've got some money saved up. Consider it an investment in justice. My phone buzzed, a text message from Lena. Nick, please come home. We need to talk about this like adults. I showed the message to Marty. He snorted. Like adults, right? Adults don't hide their boyfriend's keys in the shower drain. I typed back. I'll talk to you through my lawyer. Another buzz. You don't have a lawyer, I replied. I will by Monday. Then put my phone on silent and ordered another drink. The floodgate was starting to fill up with the Saturday night crowd. Construction. Workers. Factory guys and various other members of Millbrook's blue-collar aristocracy. These were my people, the ones who understood that marriage meant something. And cheating wives deserved whatever they got. Nick Palmer, a voice called out from across the bar. Heard you were having some domestic troubles. I turned to see Tommy Kowalski, an electrician I'd worked with on several job sites, grinning like he just won the lottery. News travels fast, I said. Faster than you think, he replied. Chad Rohr's been bragging about his conquest all over town. Says he's got some married woman wrapped around his little finger. Tommy's grin widened. Of course, he didn't mention any names. But word is it's someone from that fancy gym where all the rich wives work out. The rage that had been simmering in my chest all day suddenly flared white hot. He's been bragging? Oh yeah, real proud of himself, Tommy said. Says she's been buying him presents. Taking him on weekend trips. The whole 9 yards. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Also says she's planning to leave her husband real soon. Going to take him for everything he's got. I looked at Marty, whose expression had gone dark. You sure about this, Tommy? Marty asked. Sure as hell, Tommy replied. Heard it from 3 different people. Chad's been running his mouth at Mulligan's, that sports bar downtown where all the young professionals hang out. He clapped me on the shoulder. Sorry, Nick, thought you should know. After Tommy walked away, I sat there staring at my reflection in the mirror behind the bar. The man looking back at me was a stranger, hollowed, defeated, humiliated. I'd spent my whole adult life building a reputation as someone you could trust, someone who kept his word and treated people fairly, and this was what I got for it. You okay? Marty asked. No, I'm not okay. I'm furious, I said, standing up and throwing a 20 on the bar. I'm done being. The victim in this story, we, walked out of the floodgate together into the cool October evening. Main Street was quiet, except for the distant sound of traffic and the occasional car full of teenagers heading to whatever passed for excitement in Millbrook on a Saturday night. So what's the first move, I asked. Marty smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. We're going to pay a visit to Elite Fitness. Time to see what other secrets your wife's been keeping. Elite Fitness was located in a converted warehouse on the north side of town, all glass and steel and motivational posters. Even on a Saturday night, the parking lot was half full. Apparently, the pursuit of physical perfection didn't take weekends off. We sat in my truck watching people come and go. Young professionals mostly. The kind of people who spent more on gym memberships than I spent on groceries. Who thought they were better than everyone else because they could afford personal trainers and organic protein shakes. There, Marty said, pointing to a red Camaro pulling into the parking lot. That's our boy. Chad Rohr climbed out of his car like he was posing for a magazine cover. Even from 50 yards away, I could see the gold chains, the perfectly styled hair, the kind of smug confidence that came from never having to work an honest day in your life. Good-looking guy, Marty observed. I can see why Lena was tempted. Shut up, I said. Just saying. Women like that type, all flash, no substance, makes them feel special. I watched Chad swagger into the gym, and something crystallized in my mind. This wasn't just about my marriage anymore. This was about justice, about making sure that people like Chad Rohr didn't get to destroy other people's lives without consequences. Let's go home, I said. I need to pack some things. You're not going back there tonight, are you? Marty asked. No, I'm going to stay at Mom and Dad's for a while. But I need clothes, and I want to see if Lena's still there. The drive back to Maple Street took 10 minutes. Our house looked the same as always. White siding, black shutters. The kind of place where normal people lived normal lives. But nothing about my life was normal anymore. Lena's car was in the driveway, but the house was dark except for the light in our bedroom window. I sat in the truck for a moment, gathering my courage. You want me to come in with you? Marty asked. No, this is something I need to do alone, I replied. I used my key to let myself in through the front door. After Tommy walked away, I sat there staring at my reflection in the mirror behind the bar. The man looking back at me was a stranger, hollowed, defeated, humiliated. I'd spent my whole adult life building a reputation as someone you could trust, someone who kept his word and treated people fairly, and this was what I got for it. You okay? Marty asked. No, I'm not okay. I'm furious, I said, standing up and throwing a 20 on the bar. I'm done being. The victim in this story, we, walked out of the floodgate together into the cool October evening. Main Street was quiet, except for the distant sound of traffic and the occasional car full of teenagers heading to whatever passed for excitement in Millbrook on a Saturday night. So what's the first move, I asked. Marty smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. We're going to pay a visit to Elite Fitness. Time to see what other secrets your wife's been keeping. Elite Fitness was located in a converted warehouse on the north side of town, all glass and steel and motivational posters. Even on a Saturday night, the parking lot was half full. Apparently, the pursuit of physical perfection didn't take weekends off. We sat in my truck watching people come and go. Young professionals mostly. The kind of people who spent more on gym memberships than I spent on groceries. Who thought they were better than everyone else because they could afford personal trainers and organic protein shakes. There, Marty said, pointing to a red Camaro pulling into the parking lot. That's our boy. Chad Rohr climbed out of his car like he was posing for a magazine cover. Even from 50 yards away, I could see the gold chains, the perfectly styled hair, the kind of smug confidence that came from never having to work an honest day in your life. Good-looking guy, Marty observed. I can see why Lena was tempted. Shut up, I said. Just saying. Women like that type, all flash, no substance, makes them feel special. I watched Chad swagger into the gym, and something crystallized in my mind. This wasn't just about my marriage anymore. This was about justice, about making sure that people like Chad Rohr Didn't get to destroy other people's lives without consequences. Let's go home, I said. I need to pack some things. You're not going back there tonight, are you? Marty asked. No, I'm going to stay at Mom and Dad's for a while. But I need clothes and I want to see if Lena's still there. The drive back to Maple Street took 10 minutes. Our house looked the same as always. White siding, black shutters. The kind of place where normal people lived normal lives. But nothing about my life was normal anymore. Lena's car was in the driveway, but the house was dark except for the light in our bedroom window. I sat in the truck for a moment, gathering my courage. You want me to come in with you? Marty asked. No, this is something I need to do alone, I replied. I used my key to let myself in through the front door. The house smelled like Lena's perfume and something else. Chinese takeout. Probably. She always ordered Chinese when she was stressed. I could hear her voice drifting down from upstairs, talking on the phone. I crept closer to the staircase and listened. I know. He found the key. I don't know how it got there, Chad. I'm always careful about that stuff. A pause. No, he threw me out. I'm staying here tonight. But I don't think he's coming back. Another pause. What do you mean? What am I going to do? I'm going to divorce him and take half of everything, just like we planned. I'd heard enough. I walked upstairs, not bothering to be quiet about it. The bedroom door was closed, but I could still hear Lena's voice. I have to go. He's here. I opened the door without knocking. Lena was sitting on our bed in her pajamas, her phone clutched in her hand, looking guilty and defiant at the same time. I thought you weren't coming back, she said. I'm not. I just need some clothes, I replied, walking to the closet and pulling shirts off hangers. Nice phone conversation, by the way. Really classy stuff. You were listening? She asked. Hard not to. You weren't exactly whispering, I said, grabbing a suitcase from the top shelf and starting to pack. So you and Chad had this whole thing planned out, huh? The divorce, taking half my stuff. How long have you been working on that little scheme? Lena didn't answer, just sat there watching me pack, her face a mask of cold calculation. I want you to know something, I said, not looking at her. I loved you for 8 years. I loved you more than anything in the world. I would have done anything for you, given you anything you wanted, and you threw it away for some gym rat with gold chains and a sports car. Nick, I'm not, she started, but I cut her off. I'm not finished. I turned to face her. You want a divorce? Fine, you'll get your divorce, but you're not getting half of anything. By the time I'm done with you, you'll be lucky to get the clothes on your back. She laughed, actually laughed. You can't stop me from getting what I'm entitled to. Nick, I've already talked to a lawyer. Really? Which lawyer? Jennifer Morrison. She specializes in women's rights and divorce cases, she said. I smiled. Jennifer Morrison? Good choice. She's expensive, but she's worth it. Too bad you won't be able to afford her much longer. What's that supposed to mean? She asked. I zipped up my suitcase and headed for the door. It means you picked the wrong husband to screw over. Lena, it means you have no idea who you're dealing with. And it means that by the time this is over, everyone in this town is going to know exactly what kind of person you really are. I was halfway down the stairs when she called after me. You can't do anything to me. Nick, I know people in this town. I have friends. I stopped and looked back up at her. So do I, Lena, so do I. Monday morning found me sitting in the office of Patricia Hendricks, the best divorce attorney in 3 counties. Pat was a small woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She'd handled my neighbor's divorce 2 years ago and had absolutely destroyed his cheating ex-wife in court. So let me make sure I understand this correctly, Pat said, reviewing the notes she'd taken. Your wife has been having an affair with Chad Rohr for approximately 4 months. You have physical evidence in the form of his locker key found in your shower drain. You have a witness who heard him bragging about the affair in public. And you have a recording of your wife discussing plans to divorce you and take half your assets. That's right, I said. And you want to pursue a fault-based divorce on grounds of adultery. I want to destroy her, I said. Legally, financially, socially. I want to make sure she gets nothing. And everyone in town knows why. Pat leaned back in her chair, studying me. Mr. Palmer, I've been practicing family law for 25 years. I've seen a lot of angry husbands come through that door. But I want you to understand something. Revenge is expensive, time-consuming, and emotionally draining. Sometimes it's better to just cut your losses and move on. Not this time, I said. Okay, she said, opening a fresh file folder. Then let's talk about what we're going to need. First, we need more evidence. A key and some hearsay isn't going to be enough to prove adultery in court. We need photos, documentation, witnesses who will testify under oath. I've got that covered, I said, sliding a business card across her desk. My brother knows a private investigator. Guy's already started surveillance. Good, she said. Second, we need to protect your assets. Do you have any joint bank accounts, credit cards, investment accounts, joint checking and savings? She's got access to about $15,000 total, I replied. We need to freeze those accounts today. Also, I'm going to get a temporary restraining order preventing her from disposing of any marital assets, Pat said, making more notes. Third, we need to document everything. Every conversation, every text message, every interaction from now on. You don't talk to your wife unless it's in writing or with witnesses present. What about the house? I asked. That's tricky, she said. You can't legally force her to leave, but you can make it uncomfortable for her to stay. Change the locks, shut off her credit cards, make it clear that she's not welcome. Pat looked up at me. How vindictive do you want to get? As vindictive as the law allows, I said. She smiled. I like you already, Mr. Palmer. My retainer is $5,000. How soon can you get me the money? An hour later, I was sitting in my truck outside Elite Fitness, talking to Tony Ricci, the private investigator Marty had recommended. Tony was a compact man in his 40s with the kind of unremarkable appearance that made him perfect for surveillance work. Your wife's schedule is pretty predictable, Tony said, flipping through a small notebook. She's here every Tuesday and Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m., supposedly teaching classes. But here's the interesting part. There are no classes scheduled during those times. So, what's she doing here, I asked. Meeting Chad Rohr in his office. They spend about an hour together, then leave separately. Last Thursday, they met at the Marriott downtown. Stayed for 2 hours, he said, handing me a manila envelope. Photos from the hotel. Nothing explicit, but clearly intimate. Holding hands. Kissing in the parking lot. That kind of thing. I looked through the photos, feeling my anger build with each image. There was my wife, the woman I'd married and trusted and loved, wrapped in another man's arms. There's more, Tony continued. I've been monitoring her social media, her email, her phone records. She's been very careful, but not careful enough. They've been planning weekend trips together, talking about their future, even looking at apartments. Apartments, I asked? Yeah, seems like the plan was for her to divorce you, take half your assets and move in with Chad. They've been apartment hunting for the past month. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. It was one thing to know your wife was cheating. It was another to realize she'd been planning your destruction for months. What else do you need from me? I asked. Access to your house, Tony said. I want to plant some recording devices, maybe a camera or two. If they're meeting there when you're not around, we need to document it. She's staying there tonight. I'm at my parents' place, I said. Perfect. I'll go in tomorrow while she's at work. Give me a key and the security code, he said. I handed over my spare key and wrote down the alarm code. How long before we have enough evidence? Another week, maybe 2, Tony replied. But Mr. Palmer, I have to ask, are you sure you want to go down this road? Once we start exposing this affair, there's no going back. Your private business becomes public knowledge. Everyone in town will know what happened. Good, I said. Let them know. Let them see what kind of person Lena really is. Going to take half his house, half his retirement, everything. Then we're going to get a place together. Maybe move somewhere warmer. Florida, maybe. Or California. What if the husband finds out before the divorce goes through? One of his friends asked. Chad laughed. What's he going to do? Guy's a nobody. No connections, no money, no power. Even if he finds out, there's nothing he can do about it. I had enough. I finished my beer, left money on the table, and walked out of Murphy's with 15 minutes of audio that would destroy Chad Rohr's life. Wednesday morning, I met with Pat Hendricks again to review the evidence Tony had gathered. The photos, recordings, and witness statements painted a clear picture of an ongoing affair and a conspiracy to defraud me in the divorce proceedings. This is good, Pat said, reviewing the materials. Very good. With this evidence, we can not only prove adultery, but also show that your wife was planning to conceal assets and manipulate the divorce. Settlement. What does that mean for me? I asked. It means you're going to get everything, the house, your retirement accounts, your personal property, all of it. She might get spousal support for a few months, but that's about it, Pat said, smiling. It also means we can pursue criminal charges for fraud and conspiracy. Criminal charges? I asked. Absolutely. What she and Chad were planning constitutes conspiracy to commit fraud. That's a felony. They could both face jail time. The idea of Lena in handcuffs was more appealing than it should have been. How long before we can file the divorce papers? I asked. End of the week, Pat replied. But, Mr. Palmer, I want to prepare you for what's going to happen next. Once we file these papers and release this evidence, your wife is going to fight back. She's going to try to discredit you, claim you're lying, maybe even accuse you of abuse or harassment. Are you ready for that? Let her try, I said. I've got nothing to hide. Good, Pat said. Because this is about to get very ugly, very public, and very personal. Make sure you're prepared for that. I was prepared. I'd been preparing for this my whole life. Without knowing it, every honest day's work, every promise kept, every time I'd chosen to do the right thing instead of the easy thing. My reputation in this town was built on 30 years of integrity. Lena's reputation was about to be built on 30 minutes of evidence.